Hello, my name is Aoife Deane and this is the Happy Weight Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I want to talk about evening snacking. I think that's such a common problem for people. People might have their routine for this is my breakfast, this is my lunch, these are my snacks. And then sometimes it can all kind of blow up from the afternoon onwards, or when we're sitting down on the couch after work, after dinner, watching telly, that's when snacking and stuff like that can come in. So let's chat about that today. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. That would be cool. I'd really appreciate it. So I think the first one, right, because, I was just thinking back on when my own binge eating started when I was a teenager. And I kind of think the number one thing is flavor fatigue, that there's a big void in your diet because there's a lot of stuff that you're eating that you don't really love, or you're not really present for, or there's a lot of things that are in your diet and they're there purely because you think they should be there, or someone said they should be there, but you don't actually love them, you're not present with them, you're not feeling lucky when you eat them. They're not really adding to satiety, which is the whole aim of the game with, getting or keeping a healthy weight, is that we're satiated. We feel done. We've ticked the box for sufficient energy, sufficient nutrition, and sufficient pleasure. So we can just get on with our day or get on with our night, because we've done a good job with food. When I was a teenager, my dad, it's such an Irish story actually, but my dad got a cow killed. And I suppose it was a kind of maybe budget friendly option for a family of 7. And then there was a suspicion that the cow that he got was swapped, because basically what we had was a giant freezer of grizzly beef. And I think I had the same dinner of potatoes, carrots, and grizzly beef most days for 6 years. That's what it feels like. And back in the 90s in Ireland, rice wasn't really that much of a thing. In our family anyway, pasta wasn't that much of a thing. So it was potatoes, beef, carrots every single day. And, we're all different when it comes to food. And this is the problem with the diet industry and the nutrition industry and the weight loss industry. There's a lot of people out there that don't get pleasure out of food, and it's not a big deal to them. So that's one of the main differences, when it comes to eating and weight, is that the pleasure some of us get from food is much higher than other people. So other people could, basically eat a boring dinner every single day of their life. No, backlash of snacking somewhere else in the week. No searching for high pleasure foods at another point of the day. But I am not in that category. So I think that was one of the factors that started my binge eating. Apart from emotions, of course, emotional regulation always comes into binging and overeating, feeling a really strong feeling and not being able to deal with it, basically not being able to process it, and instead being screw it, I'll just eat, and then we distract ourselves with eating or thinking about calories or thinking about weight. But anyways, so I had this boring dinner. I'd come home from school and my mom, God bless her, I'm not giving out about her. She was a full-time pharmacist with 5 kids. She did an awesome job having dinner ready for us all. But I'd kind of eat that and then it'd be and now what? Because I had such flavor fatigue. It didn't touch the sides in terms of pleasure, enjoyment. And for me and for most comfort eaters, pleasure is linked to fullness. And you might have experienced this on diets. You might be full as a frog from 0 point veg or from whatever the diet allowed you, but from a pleasure point of view, you're empty. So you're still searching around in the cupboards and you still are thinking about food. So that's where a lot of my snacking started. And so I suppose we, like I said here, if healthy weight is our aim, well then satiety is the aim of the game. So we have to think about that post-dinner feeling, or that dinner, or that feeling by 7 p.m., that feeling by 8 p.m., that feeling by 9 p.m., that feeling by 10 p.m. walking up to bed. And how do you want to feel at those points? and then working backwards. Another thing, especially when it comes to snack food, is I just kind of think if we are incorporating snack food into the mix, so say you know how you want to feel by 7 p.m. You want like to be, say, 80% full on a yummy, yummy, yummy dinner that definitely tick lots of boxes, but you want to leave 20% space so that you can get away with eating something on the couch later whilst still, going to bed very, very, very comfortable, like not overfed in the slightest. And I just kind of think that's really important from a health point of view as well, that we're not making our body stay up and do the night shift, because digestion is kind of starting to close down from 3 p.m. on in the day. And just even for our own energy levels and everything tomorrow, it's kind of not fair to keep the whole processing unit up overnight by being overfull going to bed. Working backwards from those time points. And also, I think it's like optimizing your eating. So it's kind of like, and this is the whole difference, right, with getting out of eating and weight issues, is that when we're in eating and weight issues, we've control and we've judgment. So it's kind of like you might check in with yourself and you might be like, what would a dinner that I'd really enjoy tonight be? Like, if I imagine myself at 7 p.m. being like, oh my God, I feel so nice. That was so delicious. What might that be? And your inner knowing might tell you something like pasta carbonara, or I don't know, like fish pie with mashed potatoes, or, anything basically. And then depending on the level of disordered eating that you have, the disordered eating part of your mind will be like, but that's a lot of carbs, that's a lot of fat, that's a lot of calories. You had this yesterday, you're going to be having this tomorrow. So it will be like judgment problem, like attack basically on your food choices. But your kind of inner knowing of how you feel at 7 p.m. is based on your history with eating and your remembering of how you feel after certain meals. And if you test any one of those meals, right, like say you're like, God, that's so weird. Like, I never eat fish pie, or I never crave fish pie. That's so random, because that's what like connected eating does. It's like, oh my God, that would be perfect, but that's such a random choice, I suppose the thing is that you want to go with that and you want to trust that. And like I said, if you were to test it, it's not as if it's going to be 365 days a year. If you were to ask yourself at 5 p.m. what do you want at 7 p.m. tonight, it's not going to be fish pie. So I kind of think you knowing that the answer changes, you knowing that this tastes delicious now, but that might mean you want it every single night this week, or that might mean that it always tastes this good. I think that's the start of realizing that your body is actually very, very regulated, because our mind and fear tells us everything is all or nothing. Like, if you like chips, you would eat chips every meal, every day, forever. And then it's kind of like, would you though? Like, as in, honestly, like the taste and the feeling, you'd have them for breakfast, is it? And mid-morning snack and lunch and mid-afternoon and dinner. Like, if I was like, okay, listen to this podcast and that's your food plan, like physically, do you think that would feel well? And it's like, we know it wouldn't. So the quickest way to Z now is you ask yourself, how would you feel? And then the hardest part is to trust and to test drive, right? Because we know what it's like living with like disordered eating. We know what it's like living with overeating or binge eating problems and being overweight. We've fully explored that, right? So we've fully explored, no, you're not allowed that. Eat this. And then you eat this. It's not enough. And you eat all of that instead. So like the quickest way to Z now is to trust, no matter how weird and wonky the thing is that would make you feel comfortable. When I started on this journey, I was all like, oh, this is going to be so fun. And I'm going to be like craving green juices and super clean food. And all I wanted was like a steady stream of pastel de natas, those, Portuguese tarts. And then I had a craving for those Findus crispy pancake, like all the kind of crappy freezer food that, say, my friends growing up would have had that we wouldn't have had in our house because we were busy eating potatoes, grizzle, and carrots. So it's kind of like sometimes you want to scratch a previous itch from foods you missed out on. Maybe there was time with those pastel donatas that I went to Lisbon and I was like controlling them or not letting myself have them, or so that's a big part of getting over our eating and weight issues now, is like fully seeing the whole landscape of foods to have, and then collecting the data, collecting the physical data. We don't care what your head says about it. Your head will find a problem. Your head will call it like, oh, now it's a bad day, you ate too much. Are you being serious? Do you genuinely think you can get away with eating that much fat, or whatever rubbish it goes on with? We don't care. We're talking about health. We're talking about weight. We're talking about feeling well in our body. So the data we're trying to collect now is, did you reach satiety? Did you have a feeling of kind of fullness, kind of completion, pleasure, niceness after your meal? And then, like I said, optimizing the next part might be that I think it's kind of basic that like the foods that occur naturally, the one ingredient foods that go off, your meat, your fish, your vegetables, your fruit, all those naturally occurring foods, they are by far the nicest feeling in our belly, no doubt about it. However, processed foods are incredible for taste. And if we go over the line with them, we're left with an icky feeling in our belly and our body. So we want to marry the two of them. So then it's kind of like if you've 20% room left after your dinner, it's like it might be nice to like put the kids to bed or empty the dishwasher or whatever you have to do. And then when you're sitting down watching Succession or whatever, you have also thought about, okay, this is serving a different function now. Like you've had the savory food that replenished like a lot of nutritional needs. And now this 20% is just the icing on the cake of pleasure, and also I suppose maybe you've done a lot of low carb diets or whatever that are like, you just have your dinner and then that's it. And then, you feel like a weirdo because you're craving dessert or you're craving something after dinner. And it's like, humans have been having dessert since the beginning of time. There is nothing wrong with wanting to have sweet after savory. It is the most normal, natural thing in the world. So again, if we're going to do stuff, we're going to do stuff well. So it's like, okay, you've 20% left in your belly for something like sweet and nice. And, again, we want to respect food. We don't want to just hoover stuff down and take it for granted and not respect it and not notice it. Like, that's not a good relationship with anything. Like if we had a friend that we just consumed their time and we consumed their help or their advice or whatever and just, mindless, like that's grim. So it's the same with food. So it's kind of like, okay, I pick you, Kinder Bueno. And the nicest way to have you, Kinder Bueno, would be with a cup of tea and, in my jammies and the fire on and pressing play and maybe my face cleansed or whatever it might be. And you're building ceremony around food because we're so spoiled now with food that we've forgotten ceremony. Like when we were growing up, maybe you grew up in a house that if the stew was on and we'd lay the table maybe like half an hour and we'd get the glasses and we'd get the jug of water and we'd put out the knives and forks and the smell of stew would be in the house and we might say a prayer before meals, and there was a lot of ceremony around food. And it's also because in our ancestors' time they had less food, so they genuinely really, really valued it. And we're so spoiled now, we've kind of missed valuing food. And I kind of think it's a huge contributor then to weight problems because we're just consuming, not recognizing, not creating ceremony, not clicking in with how it's feeling. So create this lovely ceremony, like this lovely, whatever it is, carrot cake or crisps or whatever. And also don't make a hard situation for yourself if this is all new. Like there's no point being like, I will open the share bag and I will eat 5 crisps. It's like that's kind of like an alcoholic heading into a pub and trying not to drink. Those foods generally are for tastes. We don't need large volume because large volume makes us go from comfortable into the ick. And so we want to decide again, what do I want out of this food? And what we want out of this food is the pleasure, the taste. But we don't want the ick, and we don't want to be carrying around like tomorrow or tonight going to bed or whatever. So sometimes it's kind of like, if you've like one bag of Tato, 35 gram or whatever it is, and you have one of them, and then if you're like, I genuinely, my belly, like it would totally seal the deal if I had a second pack. My belly is just minus a second pack, like, and then that's cool, because at least you're being conscious. Opening up the second one rather than trying to stop yourself within a share bag. So to be honest, I don't know, is there ever a place for large portions? I don't know, do they help anyone except for the companies? Another one is, another phase of my binge eating would have been basically under calories and under nutrition during the day. So you might be ticking boxes from food plans you've come across, and you're like, that breakfast should do me, that lunch should do me, that whatever should do you. And then actually, when you've all that done, say by 7 p.m., you can actually eat an incredible amount. And how I see that is that, like, yeah, that was all just basically all someone else's idea. That was all just a list of suggestions that work for other people. But like, we're all individual. Like, you are not the average person. You are an individual. So it's like, yeah, that's cool if other people can eat that food plan and then relax at 7 p.m. and be like, I don't need any more. But if you've done that food plan at 7 p.m., you're like, what else can I eat? What else can I eat? And then eat an incredible amount. We have to start looking at this now in a very confident way. Like, let's assume you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you, okay? Food is working for you. Food has a job to create satiety and pleasure in your system. And if that food didn't perform, and now you have to keep looking around for snacks and stuff, that's not your fault. That is the food's fault. So, it's kind of like, oh, wow, how interesting that lunch works for hundreds of people, because it doesn't work for me. Anytime I've had that lunch, I've still felt hungry or miserable or craving a panini or whatever it might be. So it's like, you have to be honest with yourself. And so this is the other like fight for control that we have, right? We're kind of like, if my body wants fat, it's my job to deny it. If my body wants sugar, it's my job to deny it. And it's like, that is the quickest way to have loads and loads of calories, right? Because you will never win that fight. Your conscious mind is weak and pathetic compared to your survival instincts. So if your survival instincts want to get their hands on carbs, by God, you will be getting your hands on carbs. And if your survival instincts want to get their hands on more fat, by God, it will by the end of the 7 days. So the easiest way to health is to play ball with what you actually need. I know with my overeating in the evening, it's because I had a completely unrealistic calorie expectation for a young female healthy person. So it's like, if you're lucky enough to be mobile, I don't know, be running after kids or grandkids or be meeting up with people in wine bars, whatever. If you are healthy enough to have like a life, you have to have adult nutritional needs. You can't be eating like a little sparrow or something. We keep pissing off our body by giving it like crappy, low fat, low carb, probably, even diet foods or protein processed bullshit. And then your body is like, no, I want fat. And then we end up eating not great forms of it, right? So it's kind of like, instead, we really have to be honest about what we need and when we need. And then we also have to be honest about what we don't need. So, say we're clicking in with how we feel now. And it's like, the should in us is like, oh, you should have a mid-morning snack. And that is a good mid-morning snack to have. And then it's like, if you, really check in with yourself, it's kind of like, has my belly given any signal at all, high up or low down, that it needs anything? Because like, say mine, for instance, now, I don't feel full, I don't feel hungry. It's satiety. Like, as in, when I need to go to the loo, my bladder will tell me. When I'm cold, my skin will tell me. And when my body needs food, by God, I'll know about it. And that works for all of us. And so that's a really crappy situation when we have no appetite at all. And not only are we eating in the absence of hunger, but also we're having something that we're not even enjoying. We're having like a should food that someone else thinks is good. And I'm like, that is the most annoying thing about weight problems, that like, and I know from working with people that it's like our weight came on from foods we didn't even care about. Like, foods that we thought we were being really good girls by eating. It's like, that's generally the clutter in our diet, because all food contains calories. So it's like, we want to make sure that our diet is optimized around our nutritional and calorie needs. And your nutritional and calorie needs will be told to you by your taste buds and your belly feeling. The other thing, right, I think is nice to consider is think about the next morning. Like, think about nighttime, obviously, but also think about the next morning. So it's kind of like, say it's Thursday night, right? And say, I don't know, people bring in cakes to work on Fridays or something. It's like, it would be kind of nice to be open and ready for those cakes tomorrow at work. Like, it would be like, because there's a very different feeling, as we know, like, as in, say if you're full as a frog, totally overfed, and then go into a situation with cakes, it's kind of like, we're just piling them on. And because hunger is the best sauce, overeating is the worst sauce. So like, once we're a certain point of fed or overfed, everything is kind of like, geez, I thought it would be nicer, or nothing to write home about, or we feel bloated and uncomfortable afterwards. So it's like, if we've identified we like the cakes and work on Friday, it's like, well, let's maybe not max out in the random stuff that's in my house or in my cupboard, because I can have that any time. And it's a shame for all of that stuff to take the belly space that those lovely cakes could be taking tomorrow, because belly is limited, basically. It would be annoying to head into the cake situation still over full from random boring crap the night before. Then I suppose the same with the weekend, like, it's kind of, yeah, it's cool to let our hair down on Friday night, but again, we want to kind of think this is just like getting to a good place with food is just a non-stop food adventure. So it's like, yeah, Friday night is nice. What do my senses enjoy? What would feel good in my body? What would be so unique to me? What would make sure that I go to bed feeling nice? But then Saturday is a whole other day full of opportunities. You might go to a farmer's market, go out for brunch, you might be going out for drinks, like, as in, there's a lot of fun calories tomorrow. And it's like, you want to be like open and available for all of them. You don't want to like fall at the first hurdle and be going into all of that overfed. Again, I kind of think we just have to be so concise with what's needed, and then what is taking a fun opportunity from us later. Because I've learned that so many times. Even still, it's like, if a sandwich is just like really big, and like, say I'm 3/4 of the way through it, and then like, just because it's so yummy, I'm like, I probably won't get my hands on anything yummier than this today, so I might as well eat the rest of it. And it's like, without fail, something pops up later that day that's really delicious, and I'm pissed off that I'm still over full after eating too much of that sandwich, because that sandwich is still hanging around in my body being processed. So this thing that I'm eating now is way less enjoyable, So yeah, we always have to kind of think of the road ahead. And then it is all about making memories. So sometimes people say like, oh, I just wish food wasn't such a big thing in my life. I just wish it wasn't like my only pleasure and comfort. And, I'm just kind of like, you wouldn't be seeing me if food was a positive. Like, as in, yes, there's times that there's pleasure and comfort from food, but also have anxiety, restriction, regret, guilt, all of those negative emotions. When I was getting over this myself, I used to imagine a big American football scoreboard and me putting my shoulders back and making positive memories with a selection of foods, not just like low carb, low calorie, whatever bullshit, like being a normal human, eating normal foods like carbs, fat, calories, dessert, and using it to feel very well. Like, it's like, even if like the morning was absolute shite and the next day was shite, it's like, nope, like that is a time, that one memory is a time where I win and the disordered eating that caused a weight problem for me loses. And so we just want to build up where we've managed to create a very positive memory that, you know, we chose the stuff that would taste nice. We made a lovely memory. Yeah, and we felt really well after it. Then I suppose there's all that coaching instead of guilt. I suppose one way to get out of guilt is like, if your stomach doesn't have a problem with it, well, then your mind is not allowed to have a problem with it. You know, say I feel perfectly warm now, so my mind can't tell me I underdressed this morning, like I wore too little clothes. So equally, if your body feels very pleasant after a meal, your mind cannot tell you you ate too much. That's illogical. And we have to be very, very clear on that. So yeah, I hope today's episode helped, and thank you so much. And by the way, you can work one-to-one with me online or in Quark or by phone or whatever. And also I have 2 video courses or 2 online courses and a new one coming out really soon. Mute food noise is coming out really soon. So have a lovely week.